Hey, everybody, welcome to From Struggle to Strength, where we explore personal journeys of resilience and transformation. I'm your host, Rob Cooper. As a veteran and someone who continues to navigate my own personal development, I've learned the importance of sharing the stories and the power of the recovery community. In each episode, I will be sitting down with inspiring guests who have faced their own battles only to emerge stronger. We'll dive deep into conversations about the struggles we face, the steps we take in recovery, how we can ultimately find strength in our most challenging moments. My own journey from military service to personal crisis and eventually to founding Zero Hour Life Center has taught me that nobody should have to face their darkest hours alone. This podcast is a platform for voices that uplift, experiences that empower, and stories that resonate with all of us. Join us as we listen, learn, and grow together from struggle to strength. You're not alone in your journey, and each story shared here is a reminder of that enduring truth. Without further ado, welcome to this edition of the Struggle to Strength podcast. Hey, y'all, welcome again to another episode of Struggle to Strength. You know who I am, Rob Cooper. Grateful to be here, person in recovery. And my guest today is Crystal Medley. She is, man, I call her Wonder Woman. She don't know that, but I call her Wonder Woman. I see her, and we email each other. She's sending me updates on what she got going on in her professional life, and then on her personal life, she is mom, grandmother, person in recovery. So it was me and her been trying to get this schedule because I have a hectic schedule, and then she got a hectic schedule. So we've been trying to make this work for a couple of weeks. So without further ado, I just want to say welcome, Crystal, to the Struggle to Strength podcast. Welcome, Crystal. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate you getting this together and having me on here.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So Struggle to Strength is a podcast that was near and dear to my heart because I want the audience to see how people can go through the struggle and overcome the struggle and be in the strength mode. I call what we're doing now, we're in strength mode. We're stronger than we ever been. We can be strong. We can add more strength to our lives. But and I wanted the audience to hear, how you overcame the struggle and how you are walking in your strength mode. So I really want you to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there. So who is Crystal?
Who is Crystal? That's a great question. So I am a person in long-term recovery. I've been in recovery just about a little over 12 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's a big part of who I am. Um, I'm a mom. I'm about to be a Mimi here this week, and chose Mimi because it's a little more appropriate than grandma. Um, yeah, I work for a company called Recovery Unplugged. I get to help people get into treatment. Big on family, big on faith, and really just trying to give back um, to the community and to those that are struggling because I am very blessed to be alive and blessed to be here. And so, in a nutshell, I mean, I guess that is kind of who I am, is just a woman out here trying to give somebody some hope.
Yeah, that's good. 12 years. I didn't know, Crystal, 12 years. Congratulations.
Thank
That's a
you.
long time. That's a
Yep.
long time to have sustained recovery. It's a very long time. So I do this to every guest. If you watched our podcast, I do this to every guest. I go all the way back to the Crystal that was young, that was trying to find her way. Let's dive into that. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about you growing up. Let's talk about that, and then let's get into some struggle because
Okay.
I really want people to, yeah, they heard 12 years, but before that 12 years of sustained recovery, who was Crystal? What was Crystal doing out in this world?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I wouldn't have been recognizable, I don't think, to many that know me now. Um, growing up, I had a family that loved me. They did the best they could with what they had. My parents were my dad was a biker, my mom was disco, so they grew up in a time frame where drugs were a big thing, drinking, partying was a big thing. So in my childhood, I was exposed to a lot of that. And again, they did the best with what they had, and I respect and love everything that they did to get me to be the person that I am. But the first time I used drugs, I was 14 years old. And it started with weed and then it progressed quickly, ecstasy, acid, marijuana, all the things, alcohol. Um, and that kind of took me down a path that also equally weighed heavily on my mental health. That was kind of a big thing in my family too. My mom was manic depressant, bipolar. My dad was manic depressant, had PTSD, disabled veteran. So it was nothing new to be exposed to, what the severity of mental health looks like on somebody's life. Um, going through high school, I was out partying and, my mom really tried to take that role of my friend. I think that she struggled with my older siblings and there was a lot of disconnect there. So she took a different approach with me. And so, we bonded super close, but it was more of that friendship level. So I was telling her about how I was going partying. She was letting me go partying. And so, that kind of just increased as time went on. By the time I was 18, I had already had to voluntary Baker Act into Baycare. I did that twice, once in the mental health side and then again in the detox side later on. Um, when I was 19, my mom passed away. And so that was really hard. I had met this guy shortly before that, and we had a toxic love story. I was his drug and he was my disease. Like that's kind of how that worked. We were passionate about each other, but we were completely toxic. And so his dad passed away. He committed suicide. It was like this huge, terrible thing. I remember he was getting ready to leave for work. He had been staying with me, and I heard what sounded like a tire blew out. And I got up and like walked to the front door and look out the window, and I just feel very uneasy. And within a few minutes, it's like something out of a movie. There's tons of cops down the street and everything. And it turns out that his father had shot his stepmom and then committed suicide.
Mm.
So we had a super traumatic start to our relationship. 2 weeks later, my mom died. So we were bonded over trauma, and we were running the streets. Like we decided like this is how we're going to survive, like selling dope and doing all the things you should not be doing. And you know, it just was like it was just a traumatic situation. We were using a whole lot of drugs and we both got caught up in all the wrong things. And fast forward a couple years and we decided to move to Pennsylvania because we were trying to get away from everything. So we go up there trying to get our life straight. I get pregnant. Exciting. He's going to go in the military. Next thing you know, I lost the baby and it was all of these things. So, still more trauma, more tragedy. He didn't get in the military. So we're like, we're going back to Florida. This is what we know. This is what we do. Like, we're going back. So we get back to Florida. My dad had a lot of medical issues, and my little brother was just 13 at the time. And so I wanted to be there for him, because at that point I had a little bit of not not sobriety, but like my usage had gone down a lot in Pennsylvania, so I had some more clear thinking. Than like when I got pregnant, I wasn't using or anything like that. But anyway, when I got back to Florida, it was just a short period of time, and I found out I was pregnant again. And so, this huge blessing, excited. And right before I had my daughter, who is now 17 and about to be making me a grandma, uh, my father passed away. So I was 9 months pregnant and my dad dies. And so I am, you know, really just, I'm 22 years old, 9 months pregnant. Mom's been gone for a couple years. Now dad's gone. And I am also, my brother is 13, 14 years old and he only really knows me. My sisters moved out when he was really young. And so it was my responsibility to really figure out how to take care of him.
Mm.
So, that was kind of like a key part of, I think, putting on my daughter's dad also like a pressure. He needed to be able to provide for not only for his fiance, his new child that was on the way, but also my brother. So he starts wheeling and dealing to the fullest extent on the streets. And I give birth and things are okay for a little while. I hadn't really jumped back into the craziness of using, but it wasn't clean either. Like they gave me Percocet when I left the hospital, and I'm like, it's fine, it's what you do after you have a baby. And within a 2-year period of time, we kind of went where, we earned all of these things, for lack of a better word. Like he started a business that was somewhat legit, but really he was doing shady things that brought us up. So now we have like a little comfy living environment, and things seem on the outside like, we're a solid family, but we were super broken. It was very, very broken. And that very shortly after blew up to a massive extent. When Cadence was about, I'd say 2, she was 2. I had a seizure and was in the hospital. I ended up in a coma for 5 days. By that point, I was being prescribed a disgusting amount of medication. So, just the benzos, the opiates, the muscle relaxers, like, I mean, the amount of things that they were prescribing me was absolutely insane. And my tolerance had reached a level that would seem insane to any normal person. So, going into and having that coma and all of those things like that brought DCF into the picture. So now, the truth is starting to unravel. We lose our house. He's going in and out of prison, and so we're kind of just really pulling at strings to see how to keep things together, and it's unraveling very, very quickly. Should I?
Keep on going.
Okay.
Keep on going.
I don't want to be too long-winded.
Keep on going.
So yeah, so this was around Christmas time that I went into the hospital, and it was so bad that like nobody came to see me. Nobody knew I was in the hospital in a coma. Like, my sister later found out and felt terrible, but I didn't want anybody to know, because the thing is like, if I started putting that out there, then they had to really see where I was. They had to see what I was doing. And I didn't want that, because deep down I knew like I was not doing life right. And I had a child to take care of. And I, somehow convinced myself that I was taking care of her in the best manner, but that was not true. So, things kept going, and we lost the house there, and we ended up trying to think where we're at here. So yeah, he goes to jail. This is his first long-term stint. I think he's in there like 6 months. And I'm kind of faced with trying to figure out how to survive on my own, which I'd never done before. I mean, we were kids when we got together, lost my parents at a young age, and I had attached myself to this man in this very toxic relationship. And now he's gone and in jail. I have a massive addiction problem, and I have a child to take care of. So, for lack of a better way to put it, that was really difficult to face, and a little bit eye-opening to an extent. It was still easier to put the blinders on, I think. So I ended up still making the wrong decisions and trying to wheel and deal to get myself through because I'd never had a long working history. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is what I've learned and this is what I know to be able to survive and take care of myself. So I'm gonna keep going to the doctor. I'm gonna do what I gotta do to be able to pay bills. And this fast forwards into me ending up in I remember being in a trailer one night and I had been debating on going to the methadone clinic and just really kind of understanding I was tired of feeling sick all the time. Like the detox and withdrawal was so terrible. And so I'm like, what other options do I have? I can't financially keep doing this. And so I go to my sister has my daughter and I go over to this house trailer whatever and I'm sitting there and they start using in a different way that I had never used before, and it was kind of like, if you want this you can have it but you have to do it this way.
Right.
And so my mindset was like, maybe this is what I'm about to do, like I don't know. And then the next morning I called the methadone clinic because I was really freaked out by the thought of what that did. And you would think that would kind of bring me full circle, but it didn't at all. So I went to the methadone clinic and I was really on way too high of a dose, and DCF was still in my life. Her dad finally gets out. I let him come home where, he's now absconded probation, so he's hiding in the house, and I'm using methadone and street drugs. So like it's just a mess. Like I am completely out of it. I mean, at one point I literally left my daughter at home in the apartment and was like, hey, to the neighbor, like, just listen out. If you hear my 3-year-old, I'm gonna run to the clinic and go get my dose. Like insane. Absolutely terrible. But this, in my mind, I thought that was better than like, oh, then waking her up and dragging her to the clinic and then, all these things. There's a lot of stuff in between there, but ultimately it leads to DCF coming in and they're like, we're going to take your daughter. Like this is your last shot. You got, you need to do X, Y, and Z or she's gone. And, me thinking like, you can't do that. And like, even her dad, like right before he had violated probation. So he was still there when they came out and did that part, but he's like, literally tells them, you can't do that. Well, that's not what you want to, that's not the best thing to tell a DCF worker and sheriff's office because they can. And it was only within a few weeks that he violated probation. And then they came out and they had the sheriff's office and DCF and they were removing her from my care, and I'm holding her and like, you're gonna shoot me before you take my kid. Like insanity of like all these sheriff's office, like DCF, and I'm just making it worse every second. They're like, we need somebody's phone number because your child is going to family or we're putting her in foster care. Like, I'm not giving you my sister's number. There's no way in hell we're letting her know what's going on. You're not taking my kid. Thankfully they had my very close best friend from the age of 7. They had her number on file as an emergency contact somewhere along the line. Somehow they ended up with her number, and she comes out and is kind of helping talk me through it. And as hard as it was, I eventually have to let them take her. So she gets placed with my sister, and again, you would think wake up moment, time to, get in recovery and do the right thing. But that is, again, not what happened. I ended up like building a house of cards and I do all the things that the case managers tell me. But then the whole time I'm like, you guys are trying to take my kid. You just want to sell kids in the state. Like all of these crazy. And so eventually, like I did all the things that they told me to do, but I wasn't healed. And so they give her back to me after about 9 months, and I fail a drug screen. She's home with me like 3 weeks, fail a drug screen, freak out. Like, you guys are not taking my kid again. This is not happening. So I get a bus ticket, jump on a bus and go to Pennsylvania with her because grandparents are like, it's a Commonwealth state. Like it's, you'll be safe here. And they're in their minds, like just trying to do the right thing. Like, what do we do to protect the grandbaby? Um, so anyways, that, we go up there and I start signing my rights away to my in-laws because I'm like, that's the only way to stop her from going back into state care. What else? What do I do? And none of that was valid because I didn't have legal custody of her because DCF was still involved.
Right.
So somebody posts a picture of us while we're up there, like, oh, family time, cousins and all this. And so obviously, like, sheriff's department had been looking for me. And so they showed up over there and they're like, yeah, not family time. Like, we're taking you in. And I've got these like local officers convinced that I have no idea what's going on. Like, I just was up there on family vacation and we're going to get it all straightened out. But that was not, it got straightened out eventually. But it wasn't the way that I was trying to weasel my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent 20 days in jail. It was the first time I had ever been in jail, and most people go bar hopping. I got to go jail hopping. It was 5 days in a van, stopping at multiple jails to get back to Florida, and it was insane. By the time I got back here, I was like, something's got to change.
Right.
Something's got to give. So
Mhm.
that's really, where my life takes a turning point is getting locked up and then thinking the true thought was I was never going to see my kid again.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that was a lot.
A lot. I know.
That was a lot. No, but man, 14 started using, mom passed away at 19, father passed away at 22. Then you have one miscarriage and then you get pregnant again. How did you, man, that's a lot for someone at a young age to handle. And now being 12 years clean and sober, in early recovery, did you have to really work on those traumas that happened to you? Because sometimes I feel this way. Sometimes I feel that we get into recovery and we really, start to change our lives, but we don't work on the things that, you know, make us want to get out there and numb ourselves. So did you start working on those traumas, start working on the things that, kept you out there? And are you still working on that right now? Because I'm a component therapist. I'm an advocate for therapy. So because that's a lot to handle. That's a lot to handle.
Yeah, I wish I could give you this pretty answer that says, I jumped into all of the trauma in the very beginning. But I didn't. And honestly, yes, 12 years in now, like each day I'm still growing and learning. And it's been more recently that I've really recognized that there's some things from back in that time frame that I still really need to kind of revisit and allow myself to work through. I definitely am an advocate for therapy too. I think that, it's kind of a key component for us to work through some of that. And I lost that somewhere in the middle, trying to, just getting swept into the single mother for a while, just taking care of my kid, trying to work, trying to just, the focus of just staying and maintaining being clean, which is great, like, wonderful. But I put the other stuff kind of on hold. And so that stuff had slowly kind of resurfaced and presented itself in different ways and reminded me like this is an ongoing thing. Like we got
Mhm.
to keep digging in as much as we're able.
Yeah. Yeah. So fast forward. So you finally get to recovery.
Yes.
When did your life start to change?
So honestly, the first part was when I failed that drug screen that day and I knew that life was about to go crazy. I can remember like I dropped to my knees in the shower and you know, praying to my higher power, like, please help me figure this out. Don't take my baby away. Help me figure out how to be, the person I need to be for her. And that all happened, but just not in the way that I thought it was going to. One day in the jail, there was this program that they did. It was a church program, and they called it Chocolate Church. And
Mm,
so the lady would give out candies every time that you went to this chocolate church. And to this day, I can't tell you what she looked like. I don't know what her name was, but I remember she had a light in her eyes that was so bright that I desired that very deeply. So for me, faith is still a big part of my recovery now. But that was really kind of like the turning point in realizing like there is hope, that there
mhm,
is there is an option out there to try to do things differently. Not to say that it wasn't extremely hard when I did step out of jail. I was scared, I was terrified. I ended up, back in Pasco, um and I'm clean now for 20 days, and I, longer than I had been in years. And so wanting to figure out how to create this new life, and not go backwards,
mm,
was there was a lot of fear wrapped in that. But I just really had to focus on one step at a time,
mm,
as cliche as that can sound. Um, and I started going to church.
mm,
I had a DCF plan, and I called the caseworker and I was like, I'm scared to be here. I need to go into inpatient facility, yada, yada. So they even get a court order, but I, had no money, had no funds, no nothing, and basically couldn't get in anywhere.
mm,
So, it was like, well, if I can't get into treatment, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to figure out how to create treatment. That's what I'm going
mm.
to do.
Yeah.
Um, and one step at a time, as hard as it's going to be, like I'm just going to do the next best thing. And so sometimes that was only making it through this minute, right? Like not
Mhm,
even the full day. Um, but I dove into church, and the one bridge I hadn't completely burned was with my childhood friend, that the one that was there the day that my daughter was taken. And she let me come stay with her. And so that was a
mm,
huge blessing. And she was just taking me to church. And so day by day, I was doing that. By the time the state called me, or the treatment center that finally had a bed open, I had already finally gotten a part-time job. So it was like,
mm,
I don't know, maybe 15 days in, and I had gotten a telemarketing job, and I was taking the bus from Hudson all the way to Tarpon Springs,
mm.
which for those that don't know, that's a little bit of a
It
little
is.
bit of a hike.
Right. Let's drive.
That was the starting point of learning how to take care of myself, and just realizing that I needed to figure out how to care for me before I could figure out how to be a parent for my daughter.
Yeah. You can't, you hit two things I want to hit on. First thing I noticed in your story is any barrier that you faced, you overcame it, you figured it out, didn't have a bed in treatment, you created treatment, you know. Um, and then two is that you had support. And sometimes we as people that's in the addiction, sometimes we burn so many bridges, but there is someone still out there that still have your best interest and still have want you to do better. I was thinking about my last episode I did. I was doing a podcast with a doctor out of California, and he wrote a book on how to get your loved ones into treatment. And I was just indulging that. But he said two things that really hit me, that we as a society, we have people in recovery, we as people that made it, always tell a loved one to give the person tough love and stop enabling. And he say those are two bad words. Those are two words that we have changed to make become bad words. And when he said that, I had to think about that. And I said, I'm guilty of that too. Give your loved one tough love.
Yeah.
Stop enabling. But sometimes your best friend didn't give you that tough love. Your best friend didn't enable. Your best friend was there, you
Yeah.
know. And what if she did give you that tough love? What if she said, I'm sick and tired of Crystal doing this. She calls me, I'm not gonna pick the phone up. That sheriff called me, I'm not gonna pick. It would have, that friend could have rewrote your story and it could have been a different story. Just
Absolutely.
like that. And I'm very careful now when I'm dealing with loved ones, when I'm dealing with family members that have a loved one still out there. And I think about it. I was saying this the other day. I was talking to someone about, uh, children. And I said this, I said, I can help anybody out here, but if it was my son going through this, I'm not going to give him tough love. I'm going to love him as my son, and I'm going to see
Right.
him as my son, and I'm going to try everything in my power to get my son the proper help. And so, so kudos to your best friend. She is part of your success because you
Yep.
had nobody else.
Right.
You had nobody else. And your story is similar to mine too, because faith is my pathway, and really, um, there was this pastor when I was in Hernando County Jail that came in there and just, I was going through my stuff and he really just took me under his wing. And if it wasn't for him, he was the light. He would every Saturday he'd come in there and do his church service, and he was just, I looked forward to that Saturday evening. And even when I got released, he came and picked me up, and took me volunteer with him, and then he took me to his house for Thanksgiving, and I never ever forget that. So fast forward, okay. Now you got some time on your belt. How did you get linked up with Recovery Unplugged? Explain Recovery Unplugged.
So that's also, that's a fun story, but I'll try to make it quick for you. So I had worked at this company, a water company, for 7 years, and I worked my way up from janitor to sales and customer service. And there was a lot of comfort in that, but I realized that I really wanted to do something to impact the community more. And I didn't know what that looked like. And there was a lot of fear with leaving the comfort of that job. But it started with the foster mom that had my daughter at one point. She reached out to me and she was like, I want you to come speak for these foster parents. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, I already told them yes. I'm like, okay. So as a person with social anxiety and all of these things, I never spoke before like that. And so I got to do that, and it made me realize that, I really wanted to be in this field. So I decided to start school, and that was kind of the first step. Um, I ended up coming across a job for like a peer support specialist, and I was working for this company. I decided to leave the water company and step into the field, and I was with them about 6 months, and I was open with them about what my background was. But unfortunately, even though that was why they hired me, within about 6 months, they had been bought out by corporate, and they're like, "Hey, we're going through your file. We realize you cannot pass a level 2 background check.
Mm, mm,
So we're gonna have to let you go unless you can get this exemption within a week or two. Like, we have to fire you." So
mm,
now, like, I'm devastated because I have been in recovery for a long time. Like, this now has been a position that I stepped into, and I stepped in faith and was like, this is the right direction for me. And now I was also through 7 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant at the time, with my youngest daughter, who is now 20 months. And anyway, so they fire me, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? And I come across this role for Recovery Unplugged, and the title is Clinical Navigator. And I'm like, what is this? What is this role? What is this job? Um, and I realized that this is a place that I'd been following online for quite a while. Steven Tyler had done a performance, and there's like this YouTube video where like he's advocating for recovery, and he's singing for this group of people, and it filled my heart. So like I've
mm,
watched this video numerous times, and I'm not putting the pieces together that this is the same company. um so I do an interview, I do a second interview, and then the third time around, and we're talking, and basically they're like, we want to give you a shot. And I'm like, okay, well, here's one more thing.
Mhm.
I'm super pregnant. So is this going to be an issue? I was open with them about the issue with the background check and all of that. And they're like, no issue. Like we feel like you're a good fit. Um, this clinical navigator role was basically for somebody that didn't have any prior experience with like business development or marketing in that sense, but that, had a passion to help people and, had some experience with recovery. And so that I fit that criteria. Um, so I got started with them and now we're almost at 2 years and I'm now the outreach representative for the entire Central Florida area, which is amazing. So Recovery Unplugged is a program that got started by Richie Supa. He was a songwriter for Aerosmith, and he was bringing his music in and out of treatment centers back in the day and realized he had something. People were responding and relating to his music. And I think they kind of came to the understanding that sometimes we can't always express in words what we're feeling, but
Mm.
usually somebody out there has written a song about it.
Yeah.
And so that's 2013. That's how Recovery Unplugged came to light. And now we are in 5 states. And we just opened a mental health primary residential center. We have virtual components for people that are facing challenges like me when I was stepping into recovery as a single mom. I was trying to figure out like, how do I make this work? Like, how do
Mm.
I do outpatient care and try to be the best person for myself, but also be a mom and be there for my kid. I got no car, got no money, got no nothing. Um, and so now we have this virtual component where, clients can access that and access the support, which is amazing. And I love to be able to represent that because there's beauty in being able to access treatment no matter what your situation is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in a nutshell. Like now here we are, and I love getting to help people.
And you know, going back where you said that you were working as a peer specialist and they yanked that from you because of the level two, did that really affect you? Because I see it a lot now that, people want to work in this field. They want to become peer specialists. They want to give back. And then that level two background is something that really takes the wind out of them. How did you, when they told you, hey, you can no longer work here, you know, did it take the wind out of you? You just said, I know it sucked, but
It definitely did, and it did take the wind out of me. It took a lot to remind myself, like, to step into faith. Like everything happens for a reason, and you know, it would have been easy for me to be like, oh, poor me. I've been fired. Like I can't do this or that or whatever. But I kind of realized, and I'm thankful for support that I had with my family because I think that that's really a crucial part. But it took me back like all those years ago. You're talking about a charge that was well over 10 years old, and now I have to rip all this stuff open and revisit it and prove that I'm worthy of, like, trying to work in this field. And so just to sum up that, like, even though I did not stay with that company and I didn't need to do it with Recovery Unplugged, I still chose to do all the things and make sure that I got my exemption. And I am a certified recovery peer. And so, but that took a long time. And I'm really thankful to see now, like, there's, NAMI and a lot of the RCOs are kind of wrapping around people when they're facing those challenges, because I think that just like anything else, when we are connected and have community and support to like help guide us through
Mhm.
when it feels really heavy, like that's going to be the key point, because that is a challenging thing.
Yeah, it is. I had to go through it myself, and I overcame it too.
Yeah.
But seriously, I going through that process opened my eyes about the whole process. I was one of those people that thought that it was an unfair process. I really did. But going through it and seeing the process, I understand why. I understand why. And because right now, what I'm working on right now is that, I care about peer specialists. I really do. I care about them so much that I want to make sure that we, as the people that employ peer specialists, are able to support them or be able to keep them growing, keep them going. And because, the requirement for somebody to become a peer specialist and to begin work, you just got to have 2 years of sustained recovery, and you got to take a training, and then you get a provisional license, and then you get the hours, and next thing you know, you get certified. That's it. Now, me being a counselor, if I wanted my CAP or I wanted to be a therapist, there's some ongoing training that I have to do to keep my certification. And I look at peer specialists, 2 years, you're still healing. You're still
Mhm.
healing. There's no timetable on your healing. And now we're putting them out there and say, hey, go out there and be on the front lines, and you're out there helping all these folks. And so I'm really, 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 really trying to work on something that we can keep our peer specialists strong. Because it is a lot to get that certification. If you got a
Mhm.
background, you got to go through that whole process. And then once you get it, now you're like, whoo, I made it. But I really still think that there needs to be some ongoing training to keep people as certified peers. Um, so now your role at Recovery Unplugged, you know, how has your personal recovery, your personal journey helped you in your role as what you do with Recovery Unplugged?
I think that honestly, like it helps me with being able to be empathetic and, I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to, feel like you're dying from withdrawals. I know those pains and those struggles because I lived it. And so while each of us I feel like are very different, there's also a lot of things that we are very similar in. And so being able to let somebody know that like I get it. I hear you, I know that you're struggling right now and it feels impossible, but to also be able to say like there's hope. Like there's a lot of us out here that have been able to step into recovery. And I think that, it's a blessing when we're able to recover out loud. And I try to use that, when it's appropriate and make sure that I remember that struggle. And I
Yeah.
think that being in this role and being able to work with people that are in the trenches still, it helps me to remember that part of my life and to also count my blessings and be thankful every single day. Because even when we're going through a challenging time, like, trying to face a um, exemption or, whatever that looks like, it's important to kind of just remember that, we're a lot better today, than I was yesterday, and that we have the opportunity to reach our hand out and help those that are drowned and still.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back again too, because when did you get reunited with your oldest daughter?
So we ended up it was the first process was about 6 months. And then after that, when she was taken again, she didn't come home to me and it was almost a year. Like they really made me prove myself, which they needed to because I fooled them basically the first time around. um but yeah, so it was probably about a year before she fully made it home, and we were super blessed with the fact that like as hard as it was for her to be in a foster family, we had an amazing foster family that I'm still connected with now. We're connected through social media, and every once in a while we get in contact. But
Mhm.
yeah, now she's
Yeah.
17 and about to be a mama herself, and she's lives here with me, and we're excited to be able to support her on this next journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing an awesome job. And I was thinking about when I first met you and you came out to our first event in Hernando County, and you had to tell your story, and you were nervous about that. And I look at you now, you're just a natural. You're a natural.
Well, thank you. I don't know about a natural, but I it is I'm very thankful for all of the opportunities that you have given me to be able to, kind of help come out of my shell. Because my palms were, they're still a little sweaty right now. But
So for anyone out there listening, that's struggling, both struggling in their personal recovery or struggling just trying to get to recovery or struggling in recovery in their professional life, what advice would you give them to help them to find the strength to keep moving forward?
um, reach out, reach out to someone. If you don't have someone that that you feel comfortable reaching out to, there are so many places now. We're so lucky with the avenues that we have for help. Get connected with your church, get connected with NAMI or an RCO or just there's so many, an AA, an NA, a Celebrate Recovery, a Smart Recovery. There's so many things, and there's a lot of us out here that really care. So
Mhm.
reach out, and there's somebody here to help.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at, Rich Homie Quan. He passed away and they think it's an overdose. And I think about it, he's a big rapper, and I don't follow him. I used to follow him when I was out in the world like that, but I was just, thinking about that. And when I hear stuff like that, my next thought is who was in his corner? Who was there support? Like with Matthew Perry, I thought about that too. Who was in his corner to support him? And we as people that battle this disease, you know, sometimes it's the hardest thing to reach out. Sometimes the hardest thing to say, hey, I need some help. But you got to open your mouth. You have to break that wall down and say, look, I'm struggling. Even in people in recovery,
Yeah,
we don't got it all under control. We
no.
people think that because we got time that life don't be life. No, you still gonna get the ups and downs. You still gonna get life gonna throw it at you. Um, but that's one of the hard things I had to overcome was saying, hey, I'm not feeling it today. I need somebody. I think too is because we as people in recovery, we we got to stop this too. Is when someone fall by the wayside, beating them up, chastising them, making them feel worse than ever. We as the recovery community got to stop that, you know, because
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, because it's a disease. We can be doing the next right thing. We can be doing all the good things, but sometimes our disease wants to be first and wants to stick his head up. And so if we do have someone fall by the wayside, we need to love them, show them that compassion, and get them back on the horse and start riding. Um, how do you stay motivated and maintain your strength? How do you stay motivated and maintain your strength in your personal and professional life? Because I know you face
Um,
some challenges, but how do you keep going?
I would say, I mean, I guess, there's definitely days, right? But like just trying to stay in gratitude, and for me, like I said, my faith is a huge thing for me. So whatever it is for the individual, like I think it's just important to, figure out like what it is for them, because we all have a little bit of a difference. But like for me, it's definitely reaching out to my higher power, remembering that there's so many things to be grateful for. I mean, there are days where sometimes I'm like, okay, if it's hard to see something I'm thankful for, like go outside, take a deep breath and be like, thank you that I can breathe this air into my lungs. Like, thank you for the sunshine or the rain or whatever. And I find that like those little things can make a difference in your mindset for sure.
Yeah, that's so true. And you're a homeowner too. Ooh. Ooh.
Yes, so that is super exciting.
How you sell into your home?
We are doing really well. Like we're settling, we finally have got some stuff on the walls and kind of just it's still incredible. Like it's almost unreal sometimes, like pulling up in the driveway and like seeing this house that, I mean, worked and talked and like, had this goal for so long, and to now like have this home that we get to pull up in the drive and it's like, this is ours, like it's beautiful, it's everything we hoped for. Um, yeah, it's crazy.
Make you feel good too. And
Yeah.
it really it really adds an extra onto to your recovery. It really does. We call it recovery capital. When you build up your recovery capital, it really makes you feel proud. And um, like my dad told me, he was like, look, he says, nothing like when you turn that corner, you see your house that you work hard to get,
Yeah.
and it does something to you. So if you're out there listening, really, and you're at the struggle, really, just stay the course. Just stay the course. Just stay the course. Sometimes I feel that we want it so fast. We want the instant gratification. We want it so
Yep.
fast. You're looking at Crystal. This didn't happen just in 2 or 3 years.
No.
So don't get it twisted. You probably listen like, man, she did all that. This was time, and it was gradually, gradually, gradually happening. And so I'm proud of you. I'm proud of just, hearing about all your success. So
Thank
looking
you.
ahead, what's next? What personal and professional goals you got next? We always got to have goals. So what's next for you?
That's a great question. You know, one of the things that I plan to do is I'm almost finished with my associates, and I kind of put that on hold because I've been challenged with the math. I've been not doing well with that part. So I was like, life kind of stepped in the way, and I allowed it to. So that's my next, I want to make sure to be able to walk across that stage because I've never done that. And so I'm excited to do that. Professionally, I just want to be able to keep doing the next best thing to be able to help as many people as I can, whatever that looks like, just to spark a little bit of hope and maybe plant a seed. And then, just doing the thing with the family. Like I'm about to be a Mimi this week. So, figuring out what that looks like, especially when I have a 20-month in the home too. So yeah, my goal is just to make it function as well as possible.
Right. That's good. That's good. All right, my last question, then, and we'll wrap it up. What what do you hope your story today will do for someone that's listening that may be, in that struggle and they feel like they can't get out of the struggle? And what do you want your story to do for that person? And what hope would you want to give that person?
I think that's it. I just want to be able to spark hope for somebody. That you can get through it, whatever it is that you're facing, whatever challenge it is you're facing, whatever stage of recovery, or if you haven't stepped into recovery yet and you're thinking about it, like it is possible. You can do this. I truly believe that it is possible for every single person. As long as there is breath, there's hope. So I just really hope that, hearing my story, sparks something in you to want to take that next step forward.
Right. Look, y'all, this was awesome. This was great. The I'm so honored and so grateful to have you come on, Crystal. I know, like I said, we've been planning this for a while, and you did not disappoint me. I didn't lie. I've been knowing Crystal for a couple of years now. I didn't know all that either. So I was listening. I was learning. This first time I'm hearing it too. But man, you have a powerful story. Yeah, you went through the struggle. Yeah, you're in your strength mode right now. And there's a young lady out there right now that I feel that will stumble upon this and will get some hope. Because what I've learned, addiction does the same exact thing. Addiction is not clever. It's the same old story. We lose, and if we have kids, that's going to get removed. And it's the same exact thing. And I hope somebody stumbled upon this and gets us some and get some hope to keep doing the next right thing. Crystal, it was an honor and a privilege. And I appreciate your willingness to come on and be my guest on the Struggle to Strength podcast.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. I really appreciate the time and everything that you're doing. It's so incredible. And I feel blessed and honored to be here with you. So thank you.
Thank you.